Are you planning to start a garden? Are you concerned about where to put your garden, what to plant, where in your garden, what is the orientation, the right orientation of your garden? Hi, I'm White Davy, and in today's video we are going to be discussing 10 tips on how to plan and start your garden. For those of you who have been following me for a while, you know that we have been living at this location for approximately 4 months, and my option for garden space is very limited. And so one of the challenges that I face is that in the region where I'm now living, we get a lot of rain and we get sunshine, but the sunshine does not really go all the way down to the ground in a lot of regions because it is very hilly and a lot of trees, and therefore the sunlight gets blocked by either trees, the hills, or houses. So that is the dilemma that we face here. And in addition to that, temperatures go up to 15 degrees Celsius, and occasionally it might go up into the 20s for a week or two during the summer, but that's it. So the best option for a garden in this region or regions that experience similar conditions is to have a greenhouse, because then you can either make it a heated greenhouse, or at least a regular greenhouse would heat up by at least 10 degrees compared to what the temperature is outdoors. So the first thing you want to do is assess where is the best spot to put your garden based on sunlight and all, and you're going to determine how much space you have for your garden. So here, this is the space that I have for my garden, and I'm going to be doing a measurement of it, and then I'm going to be telling you what the measurement is. That blue thing that you see over there marks the line for this property. So I was given permission to put a greenhouse, not a greenhouse, but my garden on any area that is concreted. So one thing you want to consider is the space where you're going to keep your garden. Next, you want to look at the orientation of your garden. So right now, that direction is east, and the north is that direction. West is that way, and that's the south. When you're planting your garden, the sunlight your garden will shine from the east, west, and the south, which means that to the north of your garden, in this case right here, is where you want to put your taller plants. So if you have trees in your garden, if you plan to have a fruit tree garden, you need to have the taller trees to the back. If you're planting things that grow tall or things that are trellis, like melons or beans or tomatoes, anything that grows tall in your garden, you want to keep those on the north side. And as you move from north to south, you want to descend the plants based on their height. So the larger plants, the taller plants goes to the north, the smaller plants to the south. Also, to keep in mind, not only the north and south, but you also need to keep in mind the level of sunlight that your plants need. And so you're going to think about each plant that you intend to grow and how much sunlight it needs, because that is going to determine where in the garden you are going to put that plant. Some plants love full sun, Some like partial sun, some like shade. So that is one other thing that you need to keep in mind as you plan your garden. Now, there are some plants that loves cool weather, and there are some plants that loves the warm weather. So your cool weather crops can be planted quite early, and these include things like your brassicas, your lettuces, and other plants. And then there are those plants that love the heat, and sometimes it is that your growing season is not long enough for you to start them outdoor when the growing season begins, and so these you want to get started indoors. And you want to start these indoors long enough so that by the time you plant them outside and the growing season ends, it has enough time for you to harvest whatever it is that you have planted. The next step is to determine whether or not you're going to be growing in the ground, whether you're going to be growing in containers, or if you are going to have raised beds. And as you determine whether it's going to be in the ground, raised beds, or containers, you also need to keep in mind, depending on your circumstances, your age, your health, stuff like that, whether you are able to do a lot of bending, whether you are able to do a lot of sitting, or whether you are able, or whether you need to stand in order to maintain your garden, because that is going to determine whether you plant in the ground, in containers, or in raised beds, or how high you're going to place your containers or your raised beds. And your raised beds and your containers can be arranged where you can sit, and depending on the raised bed, you may be able to build it where you can sit on the side of the raised bed and work comfortably. And as you build these raised beds or these container garden, keep in mind that it is a good practice to allow between 18 and 24 inches between each row. 24 is most ideal. It can be wider, but it depends on the amount of space that you have for a garden. A 24-inch space between each row allow you to use a wheelbarrow between each row. Next, you want to consider whether you're going to be using row covers for your greenhouse or your container gardening, or if you're going to need animal fencing, because depending on your region, as is the case where I am, you may have issues with animals such as rabbits and deers and other animals that may come into your garden. Next, you also need to determine whether or not you need shade cloth. In my region, it won't be required because, as I mentioned, temperature is an average of 15 degrees Celsius, which means that I won't need it, but that is something you may need to consider if you are in regions that can get really warm. So these are the 10 tips that you need to consider when you are planning to start your garden. So if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more informative videos like these, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel and to turn on your notifications so you can be notified whenever I upload a video. Most videos are uploaded on Sundays and on Thursdays at 10 a.m. However, there are circumstances that may prevent me from uploading at 10 a.m., but I'll do my best to have videos at that time. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day. Yeah man, a time for grow.